The bones of this ancient turtle, this piece of petrified wood, and the imprint of this shell are all examples of fossils. Fossils are fascinating because they give us clues to what life was like long ago, and they also provide us with many useful things. What exactly are fossils? What are some of the different kinds of fossils? How did fossils form? And what can they tell us about ancient life? During the next few minutes, we're going to explore these questions and others as we investigate the fascinating features of fossils. These dinosaur tracks, located in Arizona, were formed millions of years ago. These tracks, made by a snake, were made last night. Even though these tracks were both made by reptiles, they're quite different from each other. You compare. How are these tracks different? The fossilized dinosaur tracks were made millions of years ago. The snake tracks are only a few hours old, so they're not fossils. Fossils are the traces or remains of living things from the distant past, thousands or millions of years ago. Some fossils, such as those of ancient bacteria, are billions of years old. Fossils take many forms. Some are imprints of once living things. Others can be actual fossilized remains of an organism, and some are formed in other ways. Let's now take a closer look at some of the different kinds of fossils. This fossil of a fern and this fossil of a shell were made in similar ways. They're called imprint fossils. A fossil imprint is formed when a once living thing leaves a mark. Imprint fossils are most often made when a plant or animal dies and falls into soft mud, clay, or sand. The dead thing is covered with sediment, and over time, the sediment hardens into rock. An imprint of the organism is left in the rock. The hard remains of living things, such as bones, teeth, and shells, are often the best fossil formers. There are other ways that fossils are formed. Sometimes an actual part of a once living thing becomes fossilized. For example, these bones are the actual fossilized remains of dinosaurs that lived nearly 150 million years ago. They've become rock-like over time. A similar process has taken place with these fossilized trees that grew here in Arizona about 225 million years ago. Today, we call these tree fossils petrified wood. Other fossils are formed when living things become trapped in materials that become solid. This insect, for example, became fossilized when liquid sap covered it and then hardened. The insect is a completely preserved fossil. Another way living things become fossilized is when they become covered in sticky tar. Animals that fell into the sticky tar here were quickly buried and preserved. The complete skeletons of these animals are studied today by scientists. These are just a few of the many ways fossils are formed. Fossils are clues to the past. By studying fossils, Scientists are able to learn a lot about life long ago. Fossils also tell us interesting things about past climates and how climates have changed. Almost all of what we know about ancient life forms has been learned from fossils. Fossils also tell scientists a great deal about how life has changed through time. But there are many other ways that fossils help us. Have you ever heard of fossil fuels? Every time you ride in a car or in a bus, you're using fossil fuels. Fossil fuels include oil, natural gas, and coal. The fuels were formed millions of years ago from the remains of plants and animals. Cement is another important thing that we use that comes from fossils. Cement is used in making concrete, and concrete is used to make buildings, sidewalks, and roads. Cement comes from a fossil rock called limestone. This limestone rock is formed from the dead remains of ocean animals. Notice the fossils in this piece of limestone. These are a few examples of ways that fossils are helpful to us. During the past few minutes, we explored some of the fascinating features of fossils. We began by seeing how fossils are the traces or remains of things from the distant past. We then explored some of the different types of fossils. And we investigated some of the ways they're formed. Last, we discussed ways fossils help us today and help us understand the past. This rounded out our fascinating investigation of fossils. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Number 1. Fossils are the remains of things from the distant. Number 2. A fossil is a mark left in a rock. Number 3. These fossils are dinosaur. Number 4. Oil and coal are fossil. And number 5 is made from limestone.